Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending the Mobile Gaming Research Lab lecture series. This talk is also sponsored by the North Carolina State University Department of Communication. My name is Adriana de Souza Silva. I'm a professor of communication at NC State University and the director of the Mobile Gaming Research Lab. The Mobile Gaming Research Lab supports interdisciplinary and interinstitutional research on all types of mobile games, including location-based mobile games, pervasive games, and augmented reality games. Housed in the Department of Communication, the Mobile Gaming Lab focuses on the study of all types of games that are portable and can be played while moving around. Obviously, the pervasiveness of mobile phones, which allow people to walk around spaces connected to both the internet and other people, strongly help the popularity of mobile games. But mobile games are much older than smartphones. We can trace back their origins to devices such as Mattel Auto Racer and Nintendo Game Boy in the 70s and 80s. Some of this history, as well as the theoretical implications of studying mobile games, will be discussed by our speaker today. Joining me in the organization of this event is Reagan Glover Rixey, a PhD candidate at the Communication, Rhetoric, and Digital Media CRDM program at NC State University. Reagan will be responsible for taking questions from the audience and asking questions to the speaker after the talk. The format of the event will be as follows. After my introduction, I will play a pre-recorded 20-minute lecture by our speaker, Franz Mayra. Then we will open up for questions. If you would like to ask a question to Dr. Mayra, please type your questions at the Q&A box. Questions from the audience will not be visible to attendees. Instead, they will go straight to the moderator, who will then ask questions to the speaker. I would also like to mention that if you're an undergraduate student at NC State Department of Communication who is attending the talk for credit in one of your classes, please send your name along with your instructor's name in a direct chat message to Mrs. Jody Waba. Please do that at the end of this event. Finally, I would like to introduce our guest, Dr. Franz Mayra. Dr. Mayra is Professor of Information Studies and Interactive Media at Tampere University, Finland. He studies the role of interactive media in culture and society, especially focusing on digital culture and game studies. Dr. Mayra has done research on several aspects of gaming culture, including player experiences, the socioeconomic and sociocultural analysis of games, and experimental game design. And he has published numerous scientific articles and monographs related to interactive media and game studies. He has received various awards, including the Digger Distinguished Scholar Award in 2016, and is the founding director of the Academy of Finland Funded Center of Excellence in Game Studies, as well as the head of Game Research Lab at Tampere University. Dr. Mayra, welcome to our seminar.
Hello, welcome to this short lecture titled From Mobile Gaming Towards a Pervasive Culture of Play. My name is Franz Mayra. I'm speaking from Tampere, Finland. Okay, hopefully you are able to see my slides now. So I'll start by a short introduction into the work and the location where I'm coming from. So Tampere University Game Research Lab was established officially in 2002. Then it was a part of larger hypermedia laboratory. But it has background in humanities and digital culture studies in the Department of Literature and the Arts from early 1990s onwards. And the Game Lab here emerged as a situated at the interstices of multiple disciplines and scholarly orientations. There's certain kind of fruitful tensions that it's good to notice. We had both a powerful push towards this kind of humanities-based theory formation, wanted to understand the ontology of games and play, but also the social sciences context, how to make our understanding of games accountable to the various societal contexts that are very important for meaning-making processes. And also there were financial and other reasons that required a powerful link with industry. So design, innovation, research was something that we did indeed do quite a lot from early on. This triangle of research sort of captures our early understanding what game culture studies, as we practice it here in Tampere, means. So we established multidisciplinary teams. We had externally funded research projects and a research strategy that keeps the focus on current and future-oriented phenomena. So, for example, early on, we looked into multiplayer mobile games from turn of the century onwards, location-aware gaming soon after that, pervasive games, social games, Facebook games, various kinds of emergent phenomena. Our aim here in the Game Research Lab is not actually focused on creating games, so we are not that kind of lab, but we might need to create games in certain research projects in order to study the potential of games or create game as a research instrument for understanding culture, society, the future of playful media, etc. So in this triangle, we have this humanities, social sciences foundation that is then catalyzed and informed by various design research perspectives and understanding of players, their experiences, game cultures, and the meaning making is at the heart of this enterprise. We have been experimenting and making various kind of innovations, the borderlines of academic and artistic research. For example, we have experimented with playful cultural probes, game-like self-documentation sets. We have used mobile text messages as a stimuli to participate for engaging various groups of people into studies in their everyday situations. We have also carried out various live action role play experiments where the experimental play session can continue even for several weeks in cases of pervasive play. Then we have also done collaborative design experimentations with focused game jam as a tool to understand the creative processes, collaboration, the potential of games for various purposes. Here you can see some work in the area of hybrid playful experiences. So in this case, we are exploring the analytical and experimental creative studies into the expanding digital physical borderlines. So we are also setting up environments in our own laboratory that are playful in character and embody not only games but various kind of objects and also design practices that our team of research assistants constantly is supervising and maintaining. I would say that one thing that characterizes our work is multiple perspectives, interdisciplinarity and multi-method, multidisciplinary research work. And it has its pluses and minuses. So our studies typically combine approaches to games and play that are drawn from sociology, media studies, human-computer interaction, philosophy, design research, textual analysis of various kinds. So this kind of mixed approach is good for grasping the complexity, the wide reach of phenomena like social games, multiplayer situations, games in Facebook and mobile games. However, it can also lead to a certain fragmented view. This not particularly conducive to providing a general theory that would organize all this research into a unified whole. But it has strengths. It provides very rich view. So, for example, when we studied Facebook games or social games, as they were called, the popularity and the limitations, we could explain them with technical research. We did some game usability studies into distribution and marketing of these. We studied the psychology of and play motivations, the commercial reasons, the business models, also various cultural factors related to these games, so changes in games' societal roles. And I have some references here and you can find more online. What we, of course, have been thinking a lot is that what is actually the focus of study in our game research lab? Is it games, a certain kind of designed objects, artistic or entertainment creations or products, or play, which would expand the horizon? So the rise of contemporary game studies, the sort of overshadow the important continuities in play studies. But play phenomena are arguably wider than games or forms of play that are game specific. So when we are studying games, we are always also studying play. And one could even argue that play is the more fundamental component here. You don't necessarily need a game to play. You can play with infinite potential phenomena. And there's also this kind of deeper theoretical ontological consideration that maybe play drive or playful mindset is needed for games to emerge even as objects of entertainment, art, or study. So we can certainly gamify or ludify wide range of different phenomena. And on terminology, by gamifying, I mean that when we are making something game-like, when I use ludify, I mean making playful, referring here to Roger Kailua's ludus paideia axis more specifically. But I also think that we need both directions. We need to look at games and we need to look at play and playfulness. The field of games is arguably constantly expanding and transforming. So this is a sort of moving target. This morning when I checked mobygames.com, it held details for more than 247,000 digital games. And digital games are, of course, only a subset of entire field of games. They list 287 different devices, technology platforms, and then regarding types of games, the games that are set under different themes, they are organized into 57 categories in this one website alone. And of course, there's also infinite number of indie games, experimental games, games that are spontaneously set up. So I would say that the field is pretty limitless. Yet games as such is just a fraction of what play and playfulness is or can be. Here are a couple of definitions. Play is the behavior, spontaneous and rewarding to the individual. It's intrinsically motivated. Its performance is goal in itself. The behavior occurs in a protected context when the player is neither ill or stressed. The behavior is incomplete or exaggerated relative to non-play behavior in adults, and it's performed repeatedly. So this is coming from Bateson and Martin, Play, Playfulness, Creativity and Innovation book. But this kind of perspective is a sort of behavioral science angle and founded in work done by animal play scholars. And if we go to contemporary play scholars, Mikkel Sicard in his book Play Matters says things like play is contextual, play is carnivalesque, play is appropriative in that it takes the context in which it exists and cannot be totally predetermined by such context. Play is necessarily disruptive of the order of context. Play is autotelic, play is creative, play is personal. So in culture, play and playfulness can have a range of meanings and functions, and it expands the horizon into a slightly different direction as contrasted to the behavioral sciences, understanding what play is and what it means. Another term that I want to discuss here briefly is ludification. Joost Rijsens from Netherlands in 2006 discussed how culture is becoming more playful based on predominantly ludic ontology, as he says, which is stimulated by digital technologies affiliation with playful goals and having consequences to construction of playful personal and cultural identities. Myself with colleagues Jaakko Stenrus, Markus Montola have been publishing and writing about the topic. And what we have been emphasizing is the increasing playfulness in culture, how it can be detected in, for example, how games and game-like forms proliferate in public, how the ludic literacy and playful mindset become more common, arguably, and in how the changing norms and values in society become apparent in increasingly visible and pervasive play and playful practices. So this kind of phenomena and developments, if they hold true, would be leading towards ludic society and culture, which goes under the heading of ludification broadly. So cultural approaches to play are numerous. I just point here to the classics like Johan Huizinga, who has been highlighting how play is a special form of activity, a significant form, and it's somehow set apart. And this difference of play and everyday from more utility-oriented modes of being and acting, it's certainly interesting, but it should be noted that it's not absolute, it's not watertight. Utility and play, they certainly mix, work and play do mix. But analyzing this kind of distinctions is interesting for culture scholars in particularly. So this difference is related to cultural categories, organization of our thinking and behaving, the underlying logic and foundation of our thinking and behaving in society. So when we want to understand the cultural nature of play and games, we need to understand the organization of our cultural categories and therefore create this kind of system of differences and similarities. So in the following part of this short talk, I will very quickly skim through various examples that I think that they are not typically discussed in game studies, yet I think that they provide some kind of valuable perspectives and interesting food for thought, also people working in this field. So I want to first highlight imagination at the roots of play. It is very important to understand that play is not created by presence of rules, for example, or artifacts of play. If you give a person a toy, it doesn't automatically create play. You need something else. You need this kind of mindset and understanding, this kind of cultural play and playful impulse. And in this, when you are entering a playful mode, you are experimenting, you are playing around, you are creating situations that alter our perspectives. For example, I have this personal example of playing LARP, live action role-playing game, for hours alone in a closed closet. Indeed, that happened, and it can be done. But it is crucial to understand the social context, the dominant mode or mindset which makes this kind of phenomena possible. Gregory Bateson is very influential in understanding and analyzing what he calls meta-communications, how there must be certain kind of hints in this kind of play situations that guide everyone into playful interpretative frame regarding the actions and thoughts. And it's important to understand that in playful imaginative mode, alternative, the fictional perspectives are adopted as the primary ones. So you are engaging in certain kind of fantasy when you are playing. And this is an entire research field of its own, of course. There's this kind of interesting ambiguities regarding fantasy. So it's both typically understood as something that is dreamlike and hoped for, but it also has connections to delusions, figments of imaginations that can be even be dangerous. So there are carnivalesque, grotesque, and other traditions in culture. This kind of um, impulse to profane and overturn social order and hierarchies, like Michel Bardin has been analyzing. There are various kinds of cultural phenomena like ghosts, vampires, and monsters that are played with in this kind of imaginary realms. And fantasy has, under analysis, proved to be this kind of dual phenomena that both affirms the normal world order by dramatizing its collapse and highlighting how important it is to understand the everyday reality, but it's also providing safe ways of exploring the disorder, the otherness, the unseen outside of culture and society. And Bateson was discussing also this double bind phenomena, very complex communication that can be also creating various kinds of difficulties. Some artistic examples I just highlight here: Dada, the creative techniques that are like collage technique explained by Max Ernst, systematic exploitation of the chance or artificially provoked confrontation of two or more mutually alien realities in an obviously inappropriate level. I recommend reading, for example, this Prager's Making an Art of Creativity, the Cognitive Science of Duchamp and Dada article, or looking into the exquisite corpse technique by surrealists that is sort of method based on collaborative writing, collaborative art making. There are techniques like automatism, bulletism, and even entropic graphomania that are basically taking random elements surrounding you in everyday reality and then opening up your sensitivity towards the playful possibilities of those. Situationists are famous for doing various kinds of explorations into surrounding everyday reality. So, for example, Guy Debord has been, of course, writing a lot about the topic, and he was exploring psychogeographical research and experiments of dérivé or drifting, construction of situations by making journeys out of the ordinary. So you could explore like streets of Paris, like he did in his work, The Naked City, drawing this deliberately fragmented map of Paris through subjective and temporal experiences of 19 sections of the city. And there are other interesting artists like Richard Long, Hamish Fulton, that you can study. For example, this work, A Line Made by Walking, where Richard Long was basically walking back and forth in a grassy field, making something that he felt to be an artwork, and then taking a photograph of the path that his performance had carved into there. There are urban play and urban game forms that come closer to the phenomena that we are typically studying in game studies, but often we ignore things like graffiti, people engaging in parkour, for example. But early digital hybrid games, location-based games like Can You See Me Now by Blast Theory and Nottingham University. It is an important sort of exploration of this kind of play potentials in city streets. And there are other practices like urban exploration. Here are photos of people exploring the nuclear disaster site of Chernobyl. And there are sort of people who are deeply engaged with this kind of events, taking photographs and documenting them. But there are also sites that of the hobby and practice that are open for culture critique, this kind of masculine, heroic explorer subjects, emphasis, able-bodied people capable of engaging into this and not others. There are people who are making very spectacular play behaviors and practices in everyday uh, uh, places and situations, like these street art pieces. Some forms of street play are rather mundane, very accessible, and some are mixed with work and socializing. You are doodling while you are having a meeting or phone conversation. So for us researchers, I will really just want to say that it's a cultural political choice which areas of this wide field we decide to highlight, where to focus. And I would also like to call for certain kind of back to the basics here, that there are all these interesting indie art and traditions of ludic behaviors, playful culture that are having lots of potential for rediscovery and further innovation. So I would say that there are opportunities for further research in areas like trying to create better understanding of how play situations operate. We need better understanding of what constitutes playful mindset to start with, and also understanding of the role of play in culture specifically and also more generally. So finally, this is what is ongoing now in Tampere. Our Center of Excellence in Game Culture Studies has been operating a couple of years already, and our aim in establishing this center has been to model the interconnectedness of games, their uses, and the related structures of culture and society. And for that, we need strong expertise and bringing together currently disconnected academic communities. And you can read more of that in our work in the website linked there. So that's the recorded part ending here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mara, for an insightful talk. Before we begin to move to our questions and answers, I just want to remind the undergraduate students in the NC State Department of Communication that if you'd like to be counted as present for this, for an assignment or extra credit, please send your name along with your instructor's name, the course title, and section number in a direct chat to Mrs. Jody Waba. At this point, I'd like to open if the audience has questions. You can start typing those questions in the Q&A box. Dr. De Souza y Silva and I have also prepared a couple of questions for Dr. Mara, and I'll try to alternate those with the audience's questions. So I'll go ahead and start with a question. So you mentioned that play invites taking on alternative perspectives or safe ways of exploring otherness. How might play be used to facilitate thinking about issues that are important to our particular moment or within our society? For instance, considering perspectives that are not our own.
Okay, that's an interesting question, certainly. So fictional and fantastic realms that belong to at least certain kinds of games and play can provide powerful experiences. They can certainly even sometimes permanently change the ways in which we think about some things. And this is true of all forms of art, such as cinema and literature as well. At the same time, one needs to be aware that play experiences or aesthetic experiences in art and entertainment more generally, they are not real life as we understand it in our everyday reality. And therefore there has been, for example, criticism about certain kind of identity tourism, where one can safely explore identities, cultures, even tragic or violent experiences without really being put into the bodily, oppressive, or even dangerous realities that relate to the original domains of these playful explorations. So there are limits for transformation and learning that one can derive from games or simulations, if one uses that term. Yet when one approaches those with creativity and an open mind, I would say that one can indeed communicate, share, and experience something that has transformative potential in games and play. And this can also facilitate us to change our ways of living and thinking in other non-games related areas of life.
Thank you. So now we have a question from our audience. This is from Alex Cotta, a CRDM student. She asks, considering the musical events being held in Fortnite, with the rest of the industry beginning to adopt these kinds of interactions such as Roblox, how do you see the nature of pervasive play and or the playful mindset changing?
Well, I could start by connecting that kind of practices with the ludification of culture, ludic society, and culture thesis that was presented in my recorded talk. So it is one sign, I would say, that it is an area of interest and sort of visible arena for production of meaning and significance when, for example, other media forms start to take notice, and also commercial operations are sort of stayed within virtual realms of games. So regarding the pervasive play or playful mindset, I think that this is one example of this kind of wider changes in society, our ways of thinking, that games are becoming sort of naturalized. They are not something that is external to other areas of life. There was talk about digital natives and gamer generations at certain point, and this kind of deep divide set by certain thinkers, that there are people who sort of understand and do games, and other people who are completely sort of outside of these kind of practices. But I would say that the boundary line is sort of becoming more shallow and permeable. So mainstream news media can write and publish stories about events that are taking place in these kind of virtual realms of games. So that's, I think, this kind of ongoing development.
Thank you. So the next question, which I think is a bit related, so how do you think that play translates to this important component of our culture? You mentioned play often involves fantasy and imaginations, things that we typically dismiss as unimportant, or at least not to be taken seriously. But how do we move from this not serious perspective to something that actually has influence or importance within society?
Thank you for the question. I'd say that there are interesting ambiguities, like Brian Southern Smith might call them, related to play. Play is simultaneously something that is almost everywhere, yet it's rather hard to define. If one looks at the elements of culture and society that have some kind of play elements empowering them, then it becomes soon obvious that play is immensely powerful element in society. Yet it's also something that is easy to see as trivial. It might also be part of the power of play, that it is non-threatening and non-serious, as then it can feel as liberating from the other serious or utilitarian areas of life. So the full significance of play can perhaps start to unravel from two directions. We can all engage in playful forms of culture and therefore accelerate the change of cultural norms and societal values that underline various hierarchies of power, what we see and discuss as important or as trivial. The other direction might be coming from research and increasing awareness and sensitivity towards the powers of play. When we become more aware of the multidimensionality of our lives, then we'll probably become more open towards the value of play too. So there's no longer a single truth, single hierarchy of value and power, but multiple alternative ways of organizing our world and thinking.
Really interesting insights. So our next question comes from the audience, Dr. Nicholas Taylor. He asks about the relationship between contemporary capitalism and the kinds of play that take place on commercial media devices and the economic and temporal and technological and social and so forth privileges often associated with sustained forms of play. Are there examples that the COE has identified of play that has the potential to transform, say, conditions of economic oppression?
That's rather difficult question, I would say. It is true that if we are thinking of commercial game industry, for example, it has its own production logic, and it's often related to, for example, labor practices that in some cases are not exactly sustainable, that can be even seen as exploitative towards the sort of precarious young people that form large parts of the workforce. And then there's quite a lot of research that has been carried out also in our Center of Excellence regarding playboard phenomena, this kind of mixing of play and volunteer work by game players that, for example, produced mods, user-created modifications that then on the basis of end-user license agreements can be freely then adopted and commercially exploited by the companies without sort of providing any compensation for the original creators. So there are quite a lot of this kind of power relationships and dynamics, but the field is changing quite fast. And I think in 1 month we will have a public doctoral defense of researcher Heikki Tyni that is focusing on crowdfunding in game culture and game industry. And I would say that that's an interesting example of a study where the economic sort of dynamics will be unraveled in as this kind of multiple interconnected networks of power, of support, enthusiasm, meaning-making processes that are sometimes monetary, sometimes they are not monetary, but they are related to cultural capital or passion or some other factors. So I'm not really capable right now of thoroughly answering this question. Apologies for that, but I think that there are certainly this kind of ongoing developments that are transforming the field. But I would say that we are moving not into this single direction of, for example, empowerment and liberation, but there are economically sort of oppressive and exploitative dimensions there intermixed as well.
Thank you. So actually now we have 2 questions that have come up regarding the current moment, which is that of having this coronavirus global pandemic affecting our lives. And so to try to fuse these 2 questions, I'm curious, you know, there's been so much suffering and uncertainty that it's hard to think of, like, you know, play being a part of our everyday lives these days. In which ways can play and games help us in situations like these, or how can they sort of become integrated in our day-to-day lives, particularly when we're stuck at home?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. So one thing that we are just doing regarding this topic is that we are finalizing a research report on the new edition of what is called Finnish Player Barometer. So it's a long-term nationally representative survey into games and play in Finland. And this time, our data set is particularly interesting because the survey responses, we got over 900 of them, were collected in April and May when the pandemic and isolation measures were active in Finland and elsewhere. The final conclusions from this survey research are yet to be written, but it's already obvious that people were playing more during the pandemic than in times of our earlier surveys. And when we look deeper, we can see that partly this is reported as something that was done just to pass time when no other activities were available. Teenagers reported that their game playing times were particularly high during this time. On the other hand, we were also witnessing middle-aged people and parents reporting playing more, and also families playing more together. So there are certainly multiple sides into this. So people obviously have need for escape, and they also had in times like this, they need a place for recovery and some kind of areas that are restorative for their mental health and energies, place for having fun and keeping playful contact also with their friends and family. And for some people, the daily sessions of playing an online multiplayer game might be at these times the only human context they had with other people and while living in isolation. So play and games, they can certainly serve multiple needs in these exceptional times, and it can be also be seen from their popularity if we are looking at the statistics.
Thank you. So we have another question from the audience, this one from Chris Paul, who writes, how do you think that this conception of play changes the notion of how we think about gamers or players? Can it be a way to decenter traditional expectations of the market?
Thinking about gamers or players. Well, I think that in a certain way, if we take this kind of very sort of broad-ranging interpretation of play and playfulness and sort of start equating it with sort of creative capacity or alternative perspective, or even with like imagination or fantasy becomes the root of play, then who is actually a player or gamer from that perspective? I would say that it at least should encourage us to sort of reconsider our stereotypical understanding of players as people who are deeply engaged with only this kind of tip of the iceberg style of very high octane sort of visible, commercially produced game forms, action games, or game products of that kind. I think that this kind of extended and expanded conception of play should encourage us to sort of see the player in different eyes, that we can look everybody and sort of find alternative interpretations what it means to be a player. And also from that starting point, then we might start to start reconsidering what games are, and also what is our conception of the archetypal game that is sort of guiding our understanding what is the proper domain where scholars of game studies are working with.
Okay, so one related question that I think we might look to is, you mentioned that play is not bound by rules, but rather games, and that it allows for spontaneity, imagination, and fantasy. On the other hand, games with rules, what can we learn from these rules of the game? What do rules lead to? Do they take the values away from play, for instance?
Well, rules are certainly very interesting, both regarding games as designed creations and forms of play as emergent practices. From this kind of more design research angle, successful game rules, they need to satisfy multiple criteria, or they will not work. Nobody will play them or enjoy them. For example, rules can be too complex. They can be non-optimal regarding the target audience, or they can have different kinds of blind spots which players then can perhaps also fill in with their own house rules, particularly if we are talking about this kind of very simple games, classic board games example, then house rules are natural part of interpreting the designed rules. There are also many interesting studies which have looked games from this kind of counterplay angle. There's always certain application of power involved in rules, and players may submit to those rules, but they also may engage with a struggle with the rules. Such rules can give birth to play that goes along the built-in script or of game design, but equally it can provoke counter reactions or just stimulate explorations into alternative emergent forms of play. So there can also be multiple motivations underlying both the ways in how games and their rules are designed and in how different kinds of people decide to play along or against or alongside those rules. As such, I think that rules are certainly one dimension that one can use to study also the values and norms that you mentioned, as they are involved in the design of games as well as in various play forms.
Okay, so next we have a question from Gaius, a student in the CRDM PhD program. Gaius writes, thank you for your talk, Dr. Myra. I was just curious about the idea of the double bind that you take from Gregory Bateson's work, which for Bateson emerges from the complexity of schizophrenia and inability to make decisions. How do you think gameplay, as we understand it today, negotiates these complexities in our lives?
Thank you. Well, I was basically thinking about the basic gameplay situation as a certain kind of double bind situation, that when we are adopting the position of playing a game, one can also say that the game starts to play us, that it is a requirement for our role as a player to follow the rules, or otherwise we are not player of that particular game as it was designed. So there is certain kind of enforced and sort of subjected dimension of player position, but at the same time it is also position of freedom from other rules of everyday reality. So I can see that people might be, for example, locked into this kind of almost compulsive practices of playing. They might be repeatedly playing the same game again and again, or just passing their time by using like slot machines or playing a game of solitaire day after day. And it is, I would say that there is this kind of element of mental coping that is at the same time potentially also keeping the problem unsolved, because you are engaged in activity, so you are feeling that you are doing something, but at the same time you are not actually solving the roots of your problems, but you are locked in this kind of secondary dimension where you are possibly working out room for yourself to cope with life problems or other challenges of your life. So games have this kind of curious, like I said, referring to Brian Sutter-Smith, ambiguity in them, that they can be both empowering and liberating, and they are certainly escapist in a certain sense. They can take you away from some bad place where you are sort of threatened constantly, but at the same time that is ambiguous escape, because they can also just maintain the status quo of your everyday life. But regarding the mental health areas, I just refer to my colleagues who are currently working with some student organizations with mental health of students and a role of play in this area. And I think that one of the lessons that they have already derived is that when you combine play with other support sort of dimensions, and rather than looking at solitary play practices, you are looking at social play events and this kind of social support where play is a conduit for connecting with other people, then you can probably find a way out of this kind of nasty double bind sort of lockups.
Thank you. So one of the things that I kept thinking about is you mentioned, play can be a form of like escapism, a sort of a temporary escape from everyday life. But Charles Walker writes here in the comments, what can you say about cultural trends about who is allowed to play certain games when it comes to issues like race and gender? Have you seen positive changes, or are there areas we need to do more work on how we think about the people who can or cannot participate in games and play culture?
That is one of the really hard questions of game culture, that it is so segregated, and that looking, for example, into this Finnish player barometer data, we are asking people about the games that they are currently playing, and when you then cross-reference that in terms of gender and age, you can see that there are very strong clusters where, for example, action games, shooter games, complex competitive games, they dominate young men's sort of favorite lists, and then you have other genres, simulation and this kind of problem solving, social games that are certain forms of mobile games that are sort of more dominated or more equal in terms of gender, or which have more female players. Then we have other areas of game culture where the dynamics of development of game design practices and play practices has evolved in different routes as contrasted to commercial game development. And one field where our research have been really working on is the Nordic live action role-playing scene, where female participation and participation by gender minorities and alternative perspectives is much stronger than what I think is in commercial digital games currently. And I think that it's really interesting to and really important for us scholars working in this field to highlight the alternatives in practices of designing games, highlight games that are dealing with difficult issues and that are not taking the easy stereotypical commercial route, but are actually also dealing with something that can feel problematic or even threatening by certain audiences. But then also listen to people who are actually developing those and playing those games in order to understand what they mean for these people who are engaged with this form of culture. And then I think that at least I've seen anecdotal evidence of people working with game research and working with this kind of non-commercial productions, taking some of those ideas also into these commercial domains and trying to influence the mainstream of game design and practices. So I think that there are certainly some signs of hope, so to speak, of the field becoming more diverse.
Thank you. So I think we only have time for one more question, and I think we can leave with a question that kind of gives us a direction for future work. So you state in your lecture that play has multiple meanings and encapsulates a wide range of activities. For this reason, deciding what to study is a political choice. How might we begin to make such choices? What frameworks do you use to determine your objects or areas of study?
Yes, well, first of all, I have the luxury of working with excellent colleagues in our research center and the Center of Excellence in Game Culture Studies. We have multiple research groups. We have tens of researchers collaborating in studying different topics. So there's quite a lot of diversity, also in terms of knowledge, interests, and motivations that are driving our work. And if I look then also at the work that has been carried out in our game research lab in Tampere during the last 20 years or so, there has been certain changes. At the early stage, we wanted to learn more about the fundamental character of games and play as objects of study. We were also interested in the future-oriented forms of games, exploring emergent platforms, technologies such as mobile media, online play, multiplayer interaction, location-based play, social media gaming. And in this stage, our sort of research agenda and motivations could be described as descriptive and exploratory. Our view of play and players was collaborative. And most of us researchers also self-identified as gamers or game players of some kind. And we wanted to make positive contributions to the ways in which games were developed. Then more recently, the politically engaged character of our work has taken new forms. As well, everybody knows the societal and cultural context has changed. And there's both an increasing demand for certain kinds of play in applications that go outside of so-called classic games, for example, in what is called gamification. And also there are more aggravated forms of negative aspects of game culture, such as discrimination, harassment, hate speech, racism, and sexism. They have all directed our attention towards a more inclusive and socially engaged forms of activity. And I personally think that the framework developed by our Center of Excellence is nice because it ensures that we'll aim at a very multidimensional and complex picture of games and playing culture. So that at least is some sort of guarantee to sort of determine that our objects are important. And we are also listening to quite a lot of different stakeholder groups, and that is an important feedback for our work.
Well, thank you so much. I think that we are actually out of time, but I would like to remind before we leave the undergraduate students in the Department of Communication that if you want to be counted present in the event, please respond privately to Dr. or Mrs. Waba's message in the chat before the end of the event. Please send your name along with your instructor's name and course section. And on behalf of the Mobile Gaming Research Lab and the NC State Department of Communication, I just want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. And for those who are interested, we will have a recording of the event that will be available on the Mobile Gaming Research Lab's website. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I really appreciate given the fact that it's so late there in Finland right now.
Yeah, I have my sauna hot, so I will have a proper end of the evening, but have a very nice day there. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.